wear about 6 hats in our society. The first one is that I'm a research and project assistant in the Center for Leadership and Disability, and that's housed in the School of Public Health at Georgia State University. A second hat that I wear is that I'm an undergraduate student in psychology, and I am working on my bachelor's degree, as well as going off into a master's in public health and biostatistics, being that I love math. I'm also an entrepreneur for my blogging brand, Hello World with Maya, and on YouTube, those are more day in the life type vlogs, and I really have been doing that for 5 years, and started out sharing my experiences of living with autism and doing things like giving my 2 cents on what's going on with autism in the media, as well as providing tips and advice. And then I recently fell into this trend of day in the life daily blogging after falling in love with a YouTuber named Casey Neistat. I hope you're watching today, Casey. You're one of my favorite people. I'm also a homeowner in the greater Atlanta area, and I recently just got a redheaded roommate last year named AJ, and she says meow. And another hat that I wear is that I'm involved in the Autism Airport rehearsal tours because I love to fly, love to travel everywhere. And what you may not have guessed about me is that I am on the autism spectrum, or I'm autistic, I have Asperger's syndrome, tomato, whatever. Anyway, what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit more about my experiences of being a woman on the spectrum. So at the age of 2, my mom discovered traits that resembled autistic characteristics. The first one, I did not like being hugged. I didn't maintain eye contact. I did not like the same types of interests as other children. And when before I was born, she saw a documentary that all autistics couldn't talk, but I could. She couldn't figure it out. And she also had seen me do things like Epilaleia, where I scripted a line from a famous commercial, the Burger King, where the elderly lady says, "Where's the beef?" She also noticed that I was very hyper, and so what my parents did was they spent the next 9 years putting time and money into finding out whether or not I was autistic. So I went to various doctors, and we got a load of information. Number one doctor said that when I was 3 years old, he's a pediatrician, he thought I was really smart, said, "Miss Sundermeyer, your daughter will go to college." And then other doctors said that said that she was crazy, and they laughed at my mom. Despite that, I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 5. I was put on Dexedrine and Ritalin, and that was because I was so hyper. My teachers wanted me to concentrate in school. And then finally at the age of 11, I was diagnosed with pervasive developmental delays, none other specified. I was also placed into special ed, but I will talk about that in a minute. But what I want to do is talk about 5 major areas of my life. First, I'd like to talk about my education. I'd also like to talk about making friends, gaining my independence, employment, and of course, Dr. Temple Grandin, and I'll explain why on that later. So first and foremost, I was put into the regular mainstream classroom for the first year and a half. The first mainstream, I had special education paraprofessionals, and they began to develop an IEP with me. And in the middle of first grade, they sent me to a special education program called Badge for students with maladaptive behaviors and ADHD. And then they gradually brought me back to the mainstream classroom with the special education system, where I was learning how to do my work and just growing academically. And so I went off and had mainstream from 3rd grade through 5th grade, and then by the time I was 11 years old, I had my autistic diagnosis. I was sent to another special education program where they supposedly knew everything they could about autism, and then I had an IEP once again, or an individual education plan. You guys know what I'm talking about. Basically, I was not allowed to have a general education. If I wanted to take a foreign language, or if I wanted to take chemistry, I was often told that's too hard. I had modified classes. I was often told that I would never move on with my life. I was often told that all of my dreams were unrealistic, and I was often shot down. And they were also very controlling with me. They were also telling me that I would have a very different trajectory. Basically, the adult transition, get on Social Security, be put into a group home, get under a guardianship, all that kind of thing. And people saying that I would, people would say that the older I would get, the more help I would need. Different things like that. I was often shot down. But needless to say on that, I ended up really growing. By the time I was 18, 19, I decided I didn't want to go on that path. So when I moved down to Atlanta, I grew up in Minnesota, and I should have brought that up, I decided to look further into my education, and I fell in love with Georgia State University, but I didn't have the background. So when I moved down here to Atlanta, I lived with a family member, and I'll talk about her later. But basically, she bought me study materials, such as math books, first grade math little books, and reading comprehension, and everything I could to get myself back on track. Sorry guys, bear with me. I also had to learn this. I also had to learn everything from scratch. Again, that's what happened with the math. And then by the time I was ready, I went back to school, and I'm stuck, guys. Stuck. Really? Yeah, thank you. So what I want to do is mention that I recently went off to get my associates in psychology after going through all that, and I was told I would never amount to that, would never go off to get a degree. They told me to go off to cosmetology school. So I was able to prove them wrong, however, by going off and getting this associate's degree, and going off and showing the world that, hey, I'm better at math than most of the other kids in my class. And so that's one part of it. What I would like to do now is talk about my struggles in making friends, or what it's been like. But during childhood, I had regular friends, and these friends and I hung out, we did things together. Meanwhile, there were other kids that picked on me, called me nerd. I had friends from the age of 4 all the way up to the age of 14 years old. And I made friends in daycare, and one of them and I became best friends. We did things like sleepovers, and we went camping together. She celebrated my birthday, I celebrated her birthday. We talked on the phone every night, all that jazz. However, as she got older, she turned about 14, this friend ended up meeting her first boyfriend. After that, I became less of a focus in her life. In fact, I became a joke to her because she was talking about boys and makeup and hair, and I was still fixated on Disney films like The Lion King, Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And so I got picked on for that, and she became the bully to me. I also was picked on when I was in special education. I was picked on by other kids. They didn't want to be around me because all I did was talk about The Lion King, and I got taunted in school. I was told that Simba's dead every day when I was 13 years old. Even the kids in special ed who claimed to be my friends, they soon ganged up on me, and they started shutting me out, and they started leaving me out because there was one person in there who claimed to be my friend who wanted to be the queen bee. And so I got left out a lot. However, I ended up making friends with my bus driver, and this woman was in her 50s, and she and I have had a great relationship ever since, and I'm sure she would love to hear what I have to say. Meanwhile, my case manager blamed me for this bullying that was going on, and she was supposed to be an autism specialist. And she told me that I needed to reach out more, and that I was jumping to conclusions when I really knew what was going on. When I was also a teenager, I would go to other social outlets like confirmation, but I was afraid to make friends with the other kids at my church because I was afraid if I let them know that I like Disney films, I was going to be a laughing stock. I was going to be teased. I mean, it was already stressful enough to hear people telling me that Simba's dead, Simba's dead. And anyone who had, or anyone, but now I'd also like to tell you that I had tried to make friends with the wrong people, like my roommates. I lived with them first years ago before I lived here in Atlanta. I tried to make friends with them, but they really wanted something else. For them, they wanted somebody that could pay the rent, pay the bills. Thank you so much. I am so nervous being up. This is my first time making this kind of a speech. I also do better with visuals like PowerPoint. That's what I should have done, was made a PowerPoint this morning. People also had to point out to me when someone was not interested. For example, if someone was nice to me, I thought they were my friend. And when I would introduce these people to my parents or other people who were getting to know me, they would point it out, Maya, they're not interested in you. They're rude to you. Move on, move on. Yet I would still try to give these other people a chance. And this included a crush I used to like from a number of years ago. But another thing I heard too is that I had a hard time understanding hints, understanding that somebody is interested in me. And someone who's...
I'm trying to fix it for you.
Okay, thank you. Is that better? Well, I had a hard time understanding hints, where somebody wasn't interested in me, like they'd make excuses to me. I would take them seriously. I would say, well, maybe they'll be nice to me the next time. Maybe they'll understand. And then, or maybe they'll get back to me. They have busy lives. And then they were always too busy for me, and other people had to tell me, Maya, can't you take a hint? What's the matter with you? So I eventually began to get this gist after 3 or 4 times of them saying no in the forms of excuses. So that is something that has always been a struggle for me, is understanding when someone is really serious, rather somebody is being, or is just being sarcastic or making excuses. And then when I made friends with another girl on the spectrum, we were friends for about 8 years. She and I talked about that a lot. She had some of the same struggles where she would invite people to things, and then they would often tell her how busy they were. And these were people outside of her group of friends, which mainly had special needs or disabilities. But she said that she would get together with her friends, or not with her friends, but she'd get together with her friends and they'd be cool with it. And then these other people would invite her out to lunch, and that's how far they could go. And then when she invited them to anything, they refused. I also had trouble with social skills too. When I moved down to Atlanta in 2003, my aunt said that I had problems with social skills. Basically, she said that I had problems looking at people in the eyes or really acknowledging them. And so she would role play with me, and she would look down on the floor and imitate me and role play and show me how I was acting. And then she was showing me how I should act versus how I should not act by basically just learning how to acknowledge someone and look at them in the eye, which is quite painful for me. I get afraid of facial expressions. And then in the meantime, I ended up joining the Emory Autism Center in 2003. And I was re-diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and I got involved in the adult programs there, as well as joining another adult Asperger support group. And I made several friends there. Almost done? Okay, so I am so sorry, guys. But I also wanted to mention a few more things. I tried living on my own, and that was trial and error. But this was before I moved to Atlanta, and I struggled greatly with picking up on cues over there. I had problems with managing my money, as well as picking up when I had to have responsibilities on things such as roommate agreements. And of course, my roommates didn't know what was going on, in addition to me not disclosing to them that I have autism. Sorry. Thank you very much, guys.
Hey, Mary, can you say your name again for the live stream?
I'm Maya Sendermeyer. I am so sorry. I need to practice this more.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we do have just two more speakers. And, your mic's on. Can you tell? Hello, no. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's low.
Hello? The volume was down. Okay, we do have two speakers left, Mimi and Sunny. Mimi and Sunny, could I ask you to please keep your presentations down to 10 minutes each, if you would. Thank you, I appreciate it. So our next speaker is Mimi Sapra. Come on, Mimi.
Hello everybody, I am Mimi Sabran. I am 31 years old and an autistic woman who lives in Atlanta and moved from Connecticut. I overcame many challenges in life since early childhood. I was diagnosed with autism before age 4. Until then, I had no language and barely spoke. When I attended the Walden Preschool at the Emory Autism Center, I began speaking in 5 to 7 word sentences at age 4. When I was young, my hearing was very sensitive. Loud sounds such as fireworks, thunderstorms, and even music bothered me a great deal. My reaction to these sounds were to prevent my family from playing music, skipping holiday traditions that involve fireworks, and perseverated obsessive thoughts when it thunderstorms. As I got older, my hearing became less sensitive, so now I enjoy music, see fireworks on special holidays and occasions, and deal with thunderstorms. I became aware of my autism when I was in middle school. Autism makes me different from typical people because I had to learn social skills which did not come natural to me. For people I have never met before, I am generally shy with talking with them at first until I get to know them better. I tend to become oversensitive and feel hurt when people make fun of or criticize me. In school, when kids make fun of me, I deal with that by staying focused on my schoolwork and talk to an adult who can help me address these issues. I relate better to older people who are more mature, such as my brothers and parents' friends, as well as all my friends in the autism community, because they have a better understanding of me and my autism. I am a rule-driven person who thrives on routine, keeps things organized, gets things done on time, and being punctual. When my rules are not followed and my routines change at the last minute, I become agitated and have difficulty in adapting to such changes. I and most other autistics thrive on predictability in our environments to prevent stress, anxiety, and even meltdowns. One of the gifts from my autism is being blessed with an excellent memory. I am able to recall facts, dates of events, and many details very easily. For example, while transferring over 3,200 songs on my iPod from one computer to another, we lost 11 songs in the process. I was able to find the missing songs simply by reading over the playlist very carefully in less than 15 minutes. Whenever my parents cannot remember something, they ask me. My father calls me a walking Palm Pilot and jokes that he is going to create a website called AskMemes.com. My family calls me Memes or Mimi. My memory has helped me excel in school, resulting in high grades in both high school and college. In high school, I graduated with a 4.0 GPA and made several honor rolls. In college, I made several merit lists and dean's lists, as well as graduating with cum laude at both Cornell University and DeVry University. I am also blessed with many talents that my family and friends are proud of me of. I am talented in art, music, and marathon running. In art, I am good at drawing people. In music, I made all-state chorus 3 times in high school. In marathon running, I ran cross country in college and also completed 10 full marathons. My best marathon time was 3 hours, 33 minutes, and 52 seconds in the 2017 Public Georgia Marathon, Atlanta, Georgia. My next marathon will be the Skidaway Island Marathon on March 23rd, 2019 in Savannah, Georgia. I represent many of my friends in that one of my goals throughout grade school was to make friends. Before my graduation from high school, I and several other people in my school's autism program exchanged numbers for the sake of having friends to speak with after graduation. Later, I made new autistic friends with people I met through Aaron Niederhofer, such as Sean Perkins, Julie Marchenko, and other autistics who are part of ASAA, and began to attend more social activities in order to know people more. My friendship circle allowed me to always have people to spend time with, confide in, and ask for help and more. Thanks to my friends that I made and friends being introduced me through my friends, I have gone through incredible changes as a result of exposure to different situations, events, and experiences. As I pursued and obtained degrees in 2 different colleges over the years, I began to study in various areas that would help with my employment. First, I attended Brenau University Women's College in Gainesville, Georgia, and majored in liberal arts with primary concentrations in music and history, and secondary concentrations in biology and psychology. After obtaining my liberal arts degree, I pursued my second bachelor's degree at DeVry University in Alpharetta, Georgia, where I majored in computer information systems with a concentration in web development to obtain greater marketable skills for the workforce. Through my growth, I have been able to obtain employment performing skilled work at a small business called Care Now Services, which is work that will gradually allow me to take on new responsibilities and go further than before. This will be the 3rd time I have spoken on a panel, and it won't be the last time that I serve as an advocate, which will empower me to continue taking the initiative and seeking independence.
Great job, Mary. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Our last speaker this afternoon is Sunny Donelan. Sunny, would you please come up? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sunny Donelan, and I'm an autistic self-advocate, and I also really see myself as someone who can inspire other people like myself to advocate for themselves. And, well, you might be wondering, why am I even here today? Well, I'll tell you, and that's because, I want to inspire hope in the community. Okay, so I was born in the year 1996 and diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and pervasive developmental delay, not otherwise specified, at age 3. And I also had echolalia, which means that while I could not form my own thoughts or opinions, I only could repeat what I heard other people or cartoon characters saying. This is important, as you will see why later. Now, I had been to the Walden Pre-K for almost a year at the Emory Autism Research Center. Now, at the age of 4, I discovered very quickly that one pre-K teacher in particular, and I don't know if he works there anymore, but his name is Jamal, and I'm going to expose him because he was a really bad teacher, and I'm telling you this because he didn't like me, and so I told my mom all of the ways I plan on getting rid of him. So first I decided to melt him with water, which is a reference from the Wizard of Oz. Next, I wanted to bake him in a pan of brownies. Then I wanted to stab him with a sword and shoot him to the moon on a rocket. Now, my mom was very astounded at not only my vocabulary, but also my creativity. And let me tell you, both of my parents knew that I had been paying a lot of attention to experiences like baking brownies at home, for example, and absorbed some information. Thank you very much. So I also want to talk about a childhood friend named Sarah Cheney. Now, I was homeschooled, mind you, most of my childhood. And Sarah Cheney was like the only friend that I had, besides Solange from Walden. But Sarah and I got along really great. We saw each other almost every weekend. My favorite childhood memory of all is when we were both 9 years old. We took my pet hamster, Princess, a Siberian dwarf hamster, slid her across the kitchen floor with soap and water. And then we thought it was a good idea to dry her off with Q-tips. Kids these days. And then, so while I was homeschooled, I could not really read or write, and I didn't really understand mathematics either. Now, it wasn't until later when I was enrolled in a school for homeschooling families called the Summit Academy, which only met every Thursday. And I was in a world literature class, and a light bulb clicked where I learned how to read when I was 13. And I was reading the Odyssey and Les Miserables. And my mom said, "Are you sure you don't need me to read it to you, or can I get you the book on tape or something?" I said, "No." I did enjoy listening to the audio because I thought he could read it much better than I could. But I was still able to read the Odyssey and Les Miserables on my own and probably comprehended more than my peers. So I did really well at studies, but really struggled with social cues. Now, come 9th grade, I was no longer homeschooled, but I went to an online public charter school called Georgia Cyber Academy, which is, as it sounds, an online school. This is for all the kids in Georgia, kindergarten through 12th grade. Now, while I was in this school, I was so excited about my classes. I loved school. I did very, very well academically, and I did so well. I focused on my studies so I could graduate with my class. And the teachers sent my parents an email to tell them how well I participated in class. Now, I also wanted to point out, after I graduated high school in the class of 2015, my mom and I went to a young adult spectrum meeting where my boyfriend Aaron Niederhofer, in the audience here, was speaking on. Yes, I am an autistic female in a relationship. What? You should be arrested. Okay. So, I want to say this, that I met Aaron Denver Niederhofer while he was speaking on a panel of him and 3 other autistic adults, with Maya Sundermeyer speaking on this panel as well, along with Paul Silver and one other. And it was Aaron who inspired me to become an autistic self-advocate. And he introduced me to people like Bennett Gaddis and Sean Perkins. And don't worry, Aaron, I'm not gonna embarrass you. So, now, after that, I finally want to talk about something serious that happened to me. And as I mentioned before, autistic people struggle understanding social cues. So because of that, I dealt with sexual harassment both before and during college. So when I was 19 years old, I was shopping at Hot Topic, which is this trendy store for, it's like very edgy and cool, right? So I was there, and two, not one, but two slightly older men in their 20s came up to me and started talking to me, asking me what my name is, my number, and I just felt like I wasn't sure if it was wrong at the time, but I later knew that it was. Now, this woman who worked at Hot Topic, she helped me to understand what was going on, and she told me what to do, like call one of us or call security. Now, at the age of 19, I was finally enrolled into Gwinnett Technical College, and there I thought I had a bright future as a preschool teacher, so I started taking classes in early childhood care and education. But like a glove or a wedding dress that doesn't even fit properly, well, I eventually realized that ACCE wasn't a good fit for me because I had too many difficulties understanding very simple things, especially like what on earth does it mean to look professional in appearance? All I care about is straight lines and smooth curves and everything, and die cuts and everything. And all I wanted to do was get in the door and start teaching the kids. But no, that wasn't gonna happen. Anyways, so the second time I got sexually harassed was while I was at college. I was working on a presentation, and not a presentation, I was working on a class project, and when I came out, it was already 10 o'clock p.m. This older man, who was about 6 feet tall, had darker skin, black hairs on his arms, black hair, a receding hairline, and was wearing a red shirt and black pants and black shoes, by the way. Yes, I remember this moment as clear as daylight. So he started talking to me and following me right behind me, making me feel super uncomfortable. And then the head of the department told me what I should do next time, and since I was calling Lyft, that it would probably be best that I wait inside. Now, I want to inspire all of you to be safe, but also want to let all the men out there know, all the young and old men out there know that women do not deserve rape or sexual harassment. Now, finally, I want to thank you all so much for coming, and I hope to spread more acceptance and love and support in this community. And without further ado, I'm Sophie Donaldin, and I am on the autism spectrum.
Thank you very much, Dana. Ladies and gentlemen, can we just give all 7 panelists a round of applause, please? Okay, so we're not going to go straight into our panel session. I was planning on a little break, but we are running out of time very quickly. So just give us a couple of minutes. We're going to move the podium. We're going to bring these chairs forward. We're going to get Laura from New York back on the screen to join in. Yes, could you go ahead and do that, please, Aaron? So just bear with us for a couple of minutes, okay?
Any of this stay out of stress points. Take with you. It's okay if you want to have more than one. I would take with that. These will become many of these. You'll be arriving on Thursday, right? That's expected.
You look just like Amy over there.
Yeah. I just need this. I think you're going to need this one extra. There's something useful with the brain. With this, she has two, so this should help her. Robert, the staff managers would like 2 or 3 cards in case they want to refer you to their clients. You're working within the budget is it's a catchphrase that the advertising which will fulfill for them. Oh yeah. You too. You're out. Good. Thank you.
Very stressful.
3? Oh.
2.5, yes. I'm just right there. I'll stay.
Okay, ladies, you just take a seat at the front, please, and we have Laura. Laura, your hi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to reintroduce you to our 2 moderators this afternoon. That is Ashley Dudley and Karen Weissman, and they will be asking the panel a series of questions. Any one of you can answer, ladies, and that should get the ball rolling for you, the audience, to ask questions too. Okay? We can actually just pass it over to each other.
Well, I'm Ashley. All right, you ready? Okay. Do you think and feel it's hard being on the high end of the spectrum than it is to be on the low end of the spectrum? Why? The question is, do you think and feel it's hard being on the high end of the spectrum or the low end of the spectrum? So I think you can hear me. I don't want.
I would think it would be hard to be on the low end of the spectrum because you can't communicate and it's hard to live independently.
Okay, that's good.
Well, I think it would be harder to be on the low end of the spectrum because there's so many people that misunderstand and I guess underestimate what someone like that can't do because they're looking at a book by its cover. And in fact, there's a woman named Carly Fleischman, and she is on the low end of the spectrum. She appears to be, but she uses a different part of her brain to communicate the way that Becky did. And she said that oftentimes people misjudge her as being stupid because she rocks back and forth because she can't talk the way that I can.
Thank you. Next question.
All right, so one of my questions is, you've all mentioned various things that have impacted you and trying to deal with the business world, the world out there, or even if you're in school still and you're, trying to deal with teachers and so forth. So if any of you want to answer, what is one thing you would want a boss or a teacher to understand? If you had one thing you wanted to make sure that you got through to them, what would that be?
One thing, right? I can have more. It's hard. There's so many things. But one thing is just, I think, to be patient, because for me, for instance, like I need breaks, I need like some accommodations. I know it could be very frustrating, but
to know that autistics are great.
I think just be patient, to be accepting. I know that's two things. Okay, I'll take that back. Be accepting, right? Be accepting and be patient, because I can do what. That's the thing. We can do what people want us to do. We just have to do it differently. Yeah.
Do we want to pass it on?
I would like them to know that just because we're not doing something doesn't mean we're doing it we're not doing it on purpose. Like a lot of people seem to misunderstand when autistics don't do something, that we're just being lazy, or that we're pitching a fit, when sometimes that's not the case. It's usually not, actually.
I would say in the business world is reasonable accommodations, like enough breaks, and another is being patient with the autistic employee. Like if you're being hard on the autistic employee when they don't understand the assignment or the instructions, the autistic becomes easily upset when, say, the boss or the other coworker is hard on them.
I think, what was the question again?
It's just one thing, one thing that you would want to have either a boss, or in your case, you're in school, a teacher to understand.
Well, I was going to say this in my presentation, and unfortunately that has a lot of work to do. That being said, I think what they need to know is that just because I have autism doesn't mean that I'm not interested in you. I'm interested in what you're interested in, because hey, your interests might expose me to something new.
Laura.
That's right. Forgot.
Yes, go ahead.
Could you move the cursor off, Laura?
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I would say that I would like employers to know to talk to me, not at me. When we talk to, say, like a dog, for example, you expect the dog likes everything that you're saying, understands that you can follow its commands, and that you are interested in a return conversation because you're not expecting one. And I find, especially as a female on the spectrum, I get a lot of that being talked at and not talked to.
I agree. Thank you. So since inclusion is a big issue here amongst neurotypicals and autistic people, what can we do to help build inclusion? We all feel as one.
Well, not everybody's going to agree with this, but I think if you want to build inclusion, one of the things you should do is have education sessions at things like places of worship, or things in our community, like in our homeowners association. And these presentations should be taught from autistics like ourselves, and it should be according to our levels, like in my case, using special PowerPoint presentations, and the presentations could be from our point of view.
They should learn from autistics.
Okay. And we have Caitlin right here. And then we'll get to Laura.
So I actually learned this in Lend. Basically, what we can do to help build inclusion is like to show that inclusion benefits everyone, not just those who want to be included. I was recently at this place called Bark, and the guy was like, you know, everyone benefits from inclusion, and you know, so that's what I think we should do. Like, well, one of the things we should do is to show that inclusion benefits everyone.
Good. Hey, Laura, your turn. Oh.
Okay. I think inclusion means having people with disabilities in positions of leadership, such as teachers, lawyers, professionals, so that children on the spectrum or within disability can see that it goes someplace. They're not just being given permission by neurotypicals to participate in society, but allowed to drive and create society.
That's great, thank you. You know, looking at, we've talked a lot about some general things as well, but I kind of felt a little curious about this one. You know, I've been very excited because they brought on a lot of media having to do with autistics to understand, especially with the high functioning adult, you know, like The Good Doctor. I watch it, love it, you know, and there's, I think someone, what's that?
I like it.
Yeah, and yeah, and there's a lot of other ones on Netflix and so forth. So they've done a lot of kind of advertising to the public, you know, just because someone behaves in a certain way does not mean they're not understanding or able to do their job and so forth. But what I find very curious is a lot of these TV programs, they're characterizing people with autism who are male characters. So I just wanted to kind of get an idea of how you guys felt. Do you feel like that depicts also what you guys are going through? So I'll start with Sunny.
Well, listen up, 11 Alive, and Fox, and Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We are women on the autism spectrum, and we have voices too. Yeah, in the media, TV shows. A lot of times, like you'll see, like in Big Bang Theory, where you'll have a character like Sheldon Cooper, who is a white male on the autism spectrum, and you will see, you know, he's white, and then you'll have like characters in Star Trek like Spock, and you know, people kind of argue that or debate that he is also on the autism spectrum as well. He seems like so bright and intelligent, like, and you know, we see white autistic males who are always like very bright and intelligent, or like someone like Rain Man, for example. Well, we need to tell businesses and lawyers to convince the media, like, we need to convince like them to talk about women of color and women who are all on the autism spectrum. And a lot of the news will portray like kids on the autism spectrum slamming and flailing, having meltdowns or screaming, but they need to be broadcasting our stories and, you know, talking about us, like, who are very high on the spectrum. And so I just think, I'm like, over time, it's gonna get better. We'll be able to, you know, have our voices be heard, you know. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, I have recently been watching Atypical, and personally, I like the character Sam, but I'm seeing a few problems. First of all, the way that they portray him, he's almost like a carbon copy of Sheldon Cooper minus the genius theoretical physics aspect. And the other thing I've noticed is that they're not even paying attention to him. They're ignoring his character and paying more attention. I mean, heck, they're looking at the character Casey. I mean, she's one of my favorite characters, but they're paying more attention to her and her relationship with these girls in these schools. So that's the problem. Now, as far as women being preyed in the media, I've only seen one, and that's Temple Grandin. I mean, she's great, but logically,
I think they could make a better Temple Grandin movie, and there are lots of other actresses that could play her better. I mean, Mara Wilson. Okay, so I mean, there's Mara Wilson could play Temple Grandin, but we need other females that could. We need other females out there. Like there's Daryl Hannah. Somebody could do a story on her. She's on the spectrum too.
What was the question again?
Basically, just from everything you're seeing in the media and the different programs and stuff, the public is seeing male characters who are on the spectrum. What about females? You know, your voice needs to be heard as well.
Yes, I completely 100% agree. I think that a girl's experience with autism are different than, I said female, right? A female's experience with autism is different than a male. There's so many things that we could talk about. I can go on this subject all day, but I won't. But basically, what we're seeing in the media does not portray our experiences. And it's actually further from the truth than it is from actual reality. Like, it's funny that you brought up The Good Doctor, because I haven't, from the general autism community, I haven't heard good things about that show. I think they portray autism as a superpower, and it's supported by Autism Speaks, which, by the way, I hate. You know, so there's so much stories that can be told about women, and not just women also. It's just like, what's it like being autistic and black? What's it like being autistic and gay? What's it like being autistic and, I don't know, like Puerto Rican. You know what I'm saying?
Trans.
You know, there's so many, like, what's it like to be me, or all of us? There's so much stories that can be told. And like, you know, and also like we don't go through like the media doesn't portray everything about autism, or, you know, like something like periods, you know, like how does autism affect periods, you know what I'm saying? There's so many different things, you know. Autism is a part of every race, every gender, every sexuality, and the media should portray that so everyone can learn more about autism, because a white male's experience is not everyone's experience.
Thank you so much. And then Laura.
Well, I think it's obvious that there's a gender and a race issue already with Hollywood, which hopefully is being broken wide open recently with some of the developments. And the current shows, of course, are going to depict what sells, right? They're going to want to make money. They're not documentaries, they're television programs that they want to make money on. I think the bigger questions actually come, what happened to the film that was filmed in Atlanta several years ago that had an all-autistic cast? And why that was never, that writer and that director is still unable to be able to push that concept through Hollywood, where you have people with disabilities playing people with disabilities. The other question I end up having is, what's going to happen when autism is no longer a buzzword? I remember back in the 80s when Down syndrome was the buzzword. We had a television program called Life Goes On, where they had a young actor with Down syndrome portraying a character. But when autism became the buzzword, that just moved to the background. So I think it becomes more, again, in the inclusion part, having autistic actors, writers, and performers being able to tell stories from their perspective.
Okay, thank you. And to conclude this, our favorite question that we're all wanting to answer, what is the best thing about having autism?
For me, the best thing about having autism is I wouldn't really be here without it. You know, like, I have a great memory, like Mimi said. I'm kind and I'm caring and I'm passionate. It makes like the bad parts of me, but it also makes the good. In life, you're never perfect. So, you know, you can't have one good without bad, but the good is so worth it to me. Like, it makes me me, and it gives me a unique perspective on the world that I wouldn't normally have. And it makes me passionate and care about things that I wouldn't normally have if I was neurotypical. So, yeah.
You can stand in my phone down.
Okay. Now, regarding your comment on superpowers, your brain is your superpower, but because you wouldn't have be here without your brain, which has the superpowers. Anyway, so what do I like about being autistic? I like my eidetic memory, which is how I feel like I can identify with the character Sheldon Cooper in that way. And I rely very heavily on my memory, and that's what makes me unique. I also am good at math, but I'm not a prodigy, and I'm not a savant. I had to learn math from scratch, and that's something I wanted to talk about when I was doing my presentation in my speech. But I had to learn math when I was 21 years old, and I'm not letting it go since. I mean, sure, I'm better at math than most of the kids in my class, but again, I'm not a prodigy, and I didn't have these numbers in my head, like 1 + 1 is 2 times X, Y, Z. I mean, see, that would be a cool trait. I would love to have that, but what do I like most about being autistic? Like she said, it gives me a different aspect of the world. It teaches me how to care more.
Yeah.
The best thing about being autistic is seeing the world differently and being unique. It's seeing the world through a different lens and having a great opportunity to teach others. I have a unique perspective because I have marginalized conditions, and me with having autism and selective mutism can bring a totally different and unique perspective. You can always come up and ask me anything. I am very open about my experiences. My hardships brought many good things, like being an international advocate for autism and SM.
I think I'm just gonna parrot what everybody else has said so far and say my unique views on life in the world. Like, I have a unique perspective that I think a lot of neurotypicals don't understand, but despite them not understanding, I think it's like nice to have. Like, I see things that other people don't see, or I don't really know how to explain it. It's just like interesting, I suppose.
Nice thing about being autistic is maintaining a structured routine, keeping things organized, having an excellent memory, and having many talents.
For me, the best thing about being autistic is like Becky and Ford said, it gives me a unique perspective, and it also helps me to be, more caring, especially for other people on the autism spectrum. And I can identify with so I can identify with certain characters, and I can also identify with other people on the autism spectrum. I can identify with a character from the movie Spirited Away named No Face, because he tried, I would say, because we both try to understand social situations, and we both try to pick up social cues and understand how to act in different ways. Like, an autistic person can learn many things. Because of my autism, I can learn very fast, and I have a really good memory, which results in really good grades in classes. Unlike Maya, I will say that I really struggle with math, so hey Maya, maybe you could tutor me with my math, okay? I'll come to your condo at some point and knock on your door when I really need math help at 2 in the morning. But anyways, so yeah, I say the best part about being autistic is being able to relate to others, 2, having a really good memory, and 3, being just more caring and understanding.
Good job. You good up there, Laura? Okay.
Yep, are you ready for me?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a little delay, sorry. It's an extraordinarily difficult question to answer because I don't know if I can be autistic. So to tell you the best thing about being something without actually understanding or knowing the opposite to me is a very difficult question. However, I can say that I really enjoy being right into spaces like this and giving everybody that moment of pause. I love the pauses. And you say something that kind of makes everyone go, okay, wait a minute, we didn't think of this before. Those pauses are what change society so that we don't rely strictly on habit and we can open things up. This is how Van Gogh made better paintings. This is how we evolve and change as a society. And I really enjoy being able to do that. And if autism is my conduit for it, then that would be my favorite thing.
Okay, thank you. As we kind of wrap up, I was told to ask you guys some questions. So just raise your hand. Do you now pretty much better understand what autism is? Raise your hand. Good. Or clap.
Yeah.
Good. And do you now understand the struggles of what it's like to be a female with autism?
Yeah.
Do y'all have any questions to ask us?
It is one final question, just a small one. Just simply trying new things, going into the unknown, whether it be an activity, an interest, a new knowledge, can often be very terrifying for someone on the spectrum, much more so than just a person without. What are some things that you found have helped you as you go into the unknown on anything?
That's really a tough question, but for me, what are some of the things that have helped me? Sometimes I have to research on the internet, and sometimes I've had, like my aunt, when she was still alive, I mean, that's why I'm going to change my last name to Ryan, because she was like my mom, despite the difficulties we had in our relationship. Because she herself was on the autistic spectrum, and she was the word-based thinker, and she spoke foreign languages and did accounting, but she did was expose me to some of her interests, such as classical music and gardening, opera. I mean, I was always interested in opera anyway. So.
What helps me is that, like, knowing that everything will be okay. Like, this ain't the end of the world. For me, I just dive head first into it. And so far, it's benefiting me, I think. Thank you. Yeah, so I just realized, life is too short. I've got nothing to lose. And just dive right head first into it because I know everything will be okay and it's not the end of the world.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
Being around people like me who are also autistic because they understand me a lot like no one else does.
I know you had something that you wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Did you want to ask a question?
You know what this is?
No.
You know what this? Do any of you know what this is?
It's a monster from Mario.
Okay. Is there anybody else who, before we wrap up?
Is this supposed to be a question?
Yeah. Question of the, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do these stereotypes that we get as autistic people still infuriate you? Like for example, like sometimes I'm called a stalker, and they think that us on the higher end of the spectrum have it so much easier because we can talk or have verbal language or drive. I mean, okay, a few of us can.
Yes, I so agree with that.
Yes. I mean, in this social club I'm at, like I go on Saturdays, I get a bad vibe from them because I can drive, most of them can't. And one of them thought my life was so much easier. And I tell them, really? You think my life is easy? It's not. Have any of you had to deal with that kind of stereotype before? I was asking them, but...
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know we'll have to make this very, very quick. Just short answer.
Well, like stereotypes. Like, this is why we need to speak out more. So, like, we can debunk these stereotypes. Unpopular opinion. Well, there wouldn't be any stereotypes if there was no truth to them. However, I would say, like, these stereotypes that you mentioned do not apply to everyone on the spectrum. Thank you.
That's a good point. Yeah, just pass it down.
I think with some of the stereotypes I seem to also been faced with many times, like if I'm being controlling or one-sided or selfish and having too many negative thoughts.
Can I just say yes?
Yes, we can.
Before I became good at math, there was a big stereotype and a common belief that all autistics are good at math. And before that, I thought, well, I'm not good at math, I'm terrible at math, I hate that subject. And then when I was exposed to learning it, I had the journey, had baby steps to get there, just like everyone else.
So the question was, does stereotypes infuriate you, right?
Yeah, but they're so much infuriating.
The real question is, does it not infuriate you?
It still does to me. I still face that most days.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's the question, because I'm just saying that yes, it does. And the question is, well, I was just saying, that it, of course it infuriates all of us. Why would they not be infuriated?
And Maya made a very good point. Like, I mean, there's also stereotype that autistic people are geniuses with special talents, and that doesn't affect everyone. Like, and the ones with Savant syndrome, like the good doctor, they get the most attention because they're amazing gifts of analyzing and calculating. And not every autistic person is built like that.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah. I have to say real fast. I have to say it.
All right.
I just want to say also, I'm not good at math. I never was good at math, so the stereotype that autistics are good at math is very, very wrong.
What do you want to say?
Oh.
Am I going?
Oh.
Becky.
I was called a stalker at my school, and people don't understand really what it's like to be autistic.
And Laura, you can go ahead and go.
I would say that I used to be very infuriated, and then I hit in the 30s and decided I no longer cared what people thought about me. I don't know, I guess I get Beijing that you get to have, and now it fuels me. Now when people say I gotta do something, now I just want to do it better, so that I can just say I did it.
Hey, Ashley, didn't you have something to say?
Oh yeah, I just want to say a quote. Burn inside me said, well, once you met one person with autism, you met one person. Nobody's alone. We have the same diagnosis, but we're all different people. So just wanted to kind of say that.
Well,
Yes.
thank you everyone. I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you all for being here today. And I just want to thank our panel again, Kayla Rodriguez, Becky Semenova, great to see you, sweetie, Mimi Sapra, Ford Gentry, Maya Sundermeyer, Laura Nadine and Sunny Donovan. I also want to thank our two moderators, Ashley Dudley and Karen Weisman. Also Stars and Stripes for hosting this event. Of course, the lovely Laura. Laura, how could I forget you? I'll go back to you, that's fine. And thank you, Laura, as well. Thank you for Skyping in from New York. It was very inspiring to hear your presentation, for sure. Yes, so also to Stars and Stripes for hosting this event, and to Erin for helping too with the funding, and to our videographer Robert, and our live streamer.
Point at each other. Point at each other.
Araya.
Araya.
Could you two point your cameras at each other so that people
Yeah.
will know?
Thank you.
And,
Videographers and videographing each other.
yes, and Becky just wants me to remind you, I know we mentioned it, but you know, she's coming all the way from Toronto to be here today, so that's awesome. I think she deserves a round of applause for that. So again, thank you everyone for being here and supporting. This was the very first Autistic Women's Panel. I'm really proud of you ladies. You did an awesome job, very inspiring stories. You take care, stay safe, and you have a powerful day now.
All right, Alea, Robert.
Let me just end the live stream first so we don't get out there.
We're cutting up.
All right, thank you so much everyone who's joined us on the live stream. And